Good evening, it's 8 o'clock. I'm Sally Burdett, live from Johannesburg. Your top stories this evening.
There is not a shred of evidence to support the suggestion that the decision to prosecute Mr. Zuma was in any way politically motivated.
The state argues they have a strong case for prosecution, but former President Jacob Zuma's legal team says they have new evidence that will prove the case must be struck off the roll. Police Minister Bekkie Cele gives security planning the nod for Saturday's inauguration at Loftus-Versfeld Stadium in Pretoria. And a mother of 4 has confessed to killing her children with rat poison. Gruesome details of how she did it, even with a baby still breastfeeding. This emerging at her bail hearing in the eMalahleni Magistrates Court. We start in Pietermaritzburg. Day 3 of the Zuma stay of prosecution trial began with the state arguing they have a strong corruption case against the former president. But there was some late drama at the KwaZulu-Natal High Court. Zuma's legal team wanted to introduce new evidence it claims is crucial. The state objected, forcing the court to adjourn until Friday. Zuma and his co-accused, French arms company Thales, want to have corruption charges against them permanently stayed. Sipho Mandla-Goge reports.
A last-minute bombshell. Jacob Zuma's legal team introducing a letter it claims is from the NPA. The document purportedly demands an investigation into the role of former Justice Minister Penuel Maduna into the Zuma-Thales investigation.
My submission to you now is that there is not a shred of evidence to support that contention, that they were politically motivated.
Zuma used the so-called spy tapes to argue his political conspiracy case. The recordings have former NPA head Bulelani Ngcuka and former Scorpions head Leonard McCarthy discussing the timing of the charges against Zuma just before the ANC's Polokwane conference. But the state isn't buying it. As for the case dragging on, the state blames both accused.
It follows that Thales and Mr. Zuma in our submission are the ones responsible for the delay from 2006 onwards.
However, judges weren't convinced.
Responsibility, who's to causing this delay? Because really, strictly speaking, the delay has been caused by the NPA. The NPA hasn't knowingly, and just for one moment, you have 2 affidavits, clear perjury. You honor, and yes, you honor that agreement, but that reflection, as my brother referred to, there were months to do that.
Proceedings resume on Friday. Sipho Mandla-Goge, KwaZulu-Natal High Court, Pietermaritzburg.
Security at the presidential inauguration will be watertight. Police Minister Bekkie Cele says they're fully prepared for Saturday's proceedings. 35,000 people, including visiting heads of state, are expected to fill Loftus Stadium in Pretoria. Over 2,500 police officers will guard the inauguration. President-elect Cyril Ramaphosa has also personally requested a full battalion of over 600 soldiers. Now, their presence is the first of its kind for an inauguration.
We're satisfied that we have identified the risk and we have worked according to. As we have said on the day of elections, that we were ready, and all of you here are witnesses that we were ready. Even for this, everything will be smooth.
Our president is not only the head of state, but he is also the commander-in-chief of the South African National Defence Force. And this, in effect, is his military. And the other thing that I think would also be important to remember is that the military is not only there as an instrument of state, but military is also there to uphold the principles and values of democracy. So I think it's quite symbolic.
Shocking details have emerged in the eMalahleni Magistrate Court of how a mother murdered her 4 children using rat poison. Zinhle Maditla is applying for bail. She has confessed to the killings and detailed how she poisoned her children. A psychiatric report presented in court has revealed that she is fit to stand trial. Slindela Masikani reports.
Zinhle Maditla has confessed to murdering her 4 young children. 8-year-old Minentle, 6-year-old Blessing, 4-year-old Shaniqua, and 11-month-old Ethan. She's been in custody since December last year when she handed herself over to police. Maditla now wants to be released on bail while the state deals with her case. For the first time, the gruesome details on how the children were murdered were revealed. The state, which is opposing bail, called the investigating officer as a witness. She revealed how Maditla had had an argument with the father of 2 of her children after finding him with another woman. On her way home that day, she bought rat poison and put it into the food she prepared for the 3 oldest children. She then laced her breast with the same poison before feeding her baby. For days, Maditla kept the children's bodies wrapped in a blanket in her room. When they were finally discovered, they'd already begun decomposing. The investigating officer also told the court Maditla had tried to kill herself afterwards. Maditla's lawyer is arguing that she's a first-time offender, has no previous convictions, and isn't a flight risk. But the state says that if she is released on bail, the community of Clarinet may try to harm her, or worse, she may try to take her own life to evade trial. The matter resumes on the 5th of June when the investigating officer will be cross-examined. Slinda Lomasigan, Emalahleni in Mpumalanga.
To the Constitutional Court now, and the slow pace of land claim settlements was in the spotlight today. Labour tenants, many of whom lodged claims decades ago, want a special master appointed to assist with the backlog. The government is digging in its heels. Our reporter Michael Apple was in court today.
Without consulting us, it did not.
Many Labour tenants lodged land claims over 20 years ago. It's little surprise then that in many cases their next of kin has inherited the fight.
We lodged a claim when my father was just still alive. My mother was still alive. My aunts and everyone who was just working on the farm were passed away.
In 2016, the Land Claims Court appointed a special master to assist the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform in finalising thousands of outstanding claims. Government successfully appealed this ruling last year. The Apex Court is the last stop for Labour tenants on this issue.
The nation suffers a wound that will not heal for as long as the constitutional promises of land restitution and security of land tenure remain substantially unfulfilled.
The department argues a special master who is answerable to the court and has powers over budgets and operating costs breaches the separation of powers principle.
The gateway to correcting the order of the Land Claims Court is to set aside the SCA order first. But in our submission, the SCA order was justified just on this issue about the intrusion into the heartland of executive powers.
The Association for Rural Advancement doesn't agree with that interpretation.
The order envisaged a collaboration, a process where the special master would be working with the department to produce an implementation plan and to work with them in kind of allocating or working on budgets, what would be the resources that would be required to process the claims.
In the meantime, the wait for the Labour tenants grows longer.
I'm feeling very disappointed since the case was launched on 1996 by my father. It's now being followed by me from 2016. Still, I didn't see any difference.
Quarter chance.
Judgment has been reserved. Michael Apple, Johannesburg.
Moving now to Cape Town, and the National Council of Provinces has elected Amos Masondo as its 6th chairperson. He takes over from Thandi Modise, who was, of course, elected National Speaker of the National Assembly on Wednesday. Today's session also elected Sylvia Lucas, former Northern Cape Premier, as Masondo's deputy, while ANC MP Siso Mohai remains Chief Whip. The new NCOP members were sworn in by Chief Justice Mogoeng Mogoeng. The swearing-in signals the end of the parliamentary process to introduce MPs to the 6th term of government. So ahead on eNews, as pressure builds on Theresa May, the European Union parliamentary elections kick off in the Netherlands and the UK.
And in the markets, the rand stretched losses from earlier in the day after a largely expected decision by the South African Reserve Bank.
Or your business news now with Rafiwa Madzena. And you bring us good news this evening. My debt is not getting any more expensive.
No, it's not. So you won't be paying more for your car or your bond or any major loans that you may have, Sally. So the South African Reserve Bank opted to leave rates unchanged for the third time in a row. But it was an interesting monetary policy meeting this time around because two of the governors opted to have interest rates cut by 25 basis points. And of course, this has been a call from economists to say that we need to stimulate the economy. Given the easing inflation as well as that sluggish growth, we need consumers to be spending more because they do make up 60% of GDP. So consumer spending makes up a significant part of GDP. And also what was interesting is that they had a bit of a dovish tone, which suggests that a cut is coming in the July meeting, which is going to be more reprieve for the South African consumer, well in line with the government's stance in terms of boosting the economy, because we do know the government as well as the Reserve Bank has been under immense pressure to boost the economy and get more investment in. But it was very interesting, Sally. The markets, which we'll get into just now, weren't too impressed about it. We saw the rand falling quite significantly from highs we saw in the last week based on the decision. So it wasn't a great deal from that side.
Perhaps the markets were hoping for a cut as well. Well, I certainly am looking forward to a cut in a couple of months' time.
Absolutely.
Give us some more details on the markets today.
So, as I was saying, Sally, the markets didn't close too well today. The JSE was lower following those Asian markets in reaching a 4-month low. So we saw global markets remaining jittery as the trade tension between China and the US continues. The banks and the financials incurred the most losses at around 2.5%. If we take a look at your commodities, gold prices were higher today, and they are of course supported by those trade tensions. Meanwhile, Brent crude fell to its biggest loss of the year today as traders weighed the risk from those tensions between US and China. So we saw Brent crude was down at 4.6% at some time during the day. If we take a look at the local rand, the rand slipped to a low of 14.53 against the US dollar during the day. And this is, of course, after that interest rate decision disappointing some investors. And this is the lowest level since the beginning of this month.
Thank you very much, Rafiwa Madzena. Let's take a look at international news now. And world leaders are congratulating Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's return to power. He's won a landslide victory in the country's marathon general elections. It's given him another 5-year term and a mandate to pursue his Hindu policies. Modi's BJP party is the first to win a back-to-back majority in over 30 years. Union parliamentary elections kicked off today in the Netherlands and the UK. Britain was due to leave the bloc in March, but that deadline has since been extended. Now, the 26 EU member nations will vote over the next 3 days, with results expected late on Sunday. They're voting for 571 members of the European Parliament. And Botswana has lifted a 2014 ban on hunting elephants. Now, the government says elephant numbers have increased and it's causing problems for small farmers. Botswana has more free-roaming elephants than any other country in Africa, an attraction that draws many foreign tourists. Still ahead, all your sports news with Jeffrey.
Yes, Sally, still to come. With the recent bombings in Cairo, we'll discuss safety concerns ahead of the Africa Cup of Nations.
We're starting with women's soccer. Jeffrey Stevens, lovely to chat to you as always. Banyana, as we speak, they're in the sky on their way to France, and they got quite a special send-off today, didn't they?
It was pretty exciting. Lots of energy, lots of positivity, which is good to see. And they have truly taken the country's hopes to this World Cup. A special meeting, Danny Jordan, that was captain there, obviously. And the whole occasion was just so vibrant. And there's a moment where one of the squad members leads the tour in song, and it's just also at this occasion, Danny Jordan obviously indicated that the players will get a handsome sum of money. There we go. I was pretty impressed by Andile Dlamini, one of the goalkeepers in the squad, her voice. truly amazing. Danny Jordan confirming that each of these players will, just for playing the first couple of the group matches, get 200,000 Rand each. And as they progress in the tournament, it will become more. It's all part of 7.3 million Rand. But here is Danny Jordan himself.
Bonus for players when they go to a major events like the World Cup, like the African Cup of Nations, is always a source of tension, debate, and huge challenge. And we thought it was important that as the team leaves tonight, that everything must be sorted out. And so we made a proposal to them whereby if they can get to the second round, which means they'll be in the top 16, then each of these players will get 320,000 Rand. And after that, it becomes a knockout.
If that's not motivation to tell your girl child to start playing football, I don't know what is.
Yeah, and about time too. It's good to see that it's happening. Slightly more sobering news. We knew about that bombing on the bus in the Egyptian capital. South Africans were injured. Luckily, no fatalities, but it has raised security concerns ahead of AFCON in June. What is Bafana's position on this?
Bafana, the camp themselves, Stuart Baxter, the coach, is not too concerned. He said, look, it's business as usual from a football perspective. We've also heard from the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. They have said that there's no reason to panic, and in fact suggested that South Africans go out there in their droves and support the team. So please go and support Bafana Bafana.
There we have it. Thank you very much, Jeffrey Stevens. Still ahead, we'll have all your weather news as we head into the weekend. Candace standing by there. And then, today is World Turtle Day. We follow some hatchlings as they find their freedom in KwaZulu-Natal. Let's get all your weather as we head to the weekend. Candace McKechnie, good evening to you. How are things looking?
Hi, good evening, Sally. Well, lately we've had these chilly mornings, but still sunny and warm afternoons, and much of that will continue into the weekend, but we will see a slight variation in that tomorrow. In fact, we've got a bit of cloud and moisture moving in from Namibia at the moment. That might bring in a few drops of rainfall over the central parts early in the morning, and we're expecting a few early morning thunder showers over the northern part of KwaZulu-Natal. In fact, we're expecting a bit of thunderstorm activity over the northeastern part of South Africa into Friday afternoon as well. Sunny and warm weather is forecast over the far northwestern part of South Africa, with a fine and mild day as we head towards the Eastern Cape coastline. The Northern Cape remains dry for the majority of the day, just shy of 30 degrees in Uppington and Prieska, as well as Calvinia and Springbok, partly cloudy for Kimberley at 26 degrees. A warmer day is expected into the Western Cape, with most highs in the mid-20s over the interior. A sunny 23 for Cape Town, mostly clear for George at 19. Fine and dry as we head towards the Eastern Cape, 22 for East London, Makhanda, Bishu and Umtata, topping 24 degrees. The day starts off with a few thunder showers over the northern part of KwaZulu-Natal, Pietermaritzburg and Durban at 25 degrees. A few patchy isolated thunder showers are expected in Mpumalanga. Quite cool for the Highveld, 20 degrees for eMekhazeni with a high of only minimum temperature of 6, and Mbombela only topping 23. 25 for Thohoyandou with a bit of light morning rain. Thunder showers are expected for much of Limpopo, with a mild day for Polokwane at 22 degrees. Light rain is forecast into Zeerust and Rustenburg, both topping 26, with a few thunder showers into Mahikeng, also with a daytime high of 26 degrees. Ventersdorp at 24. It's another chilly start of the day for the Free State, Zastron at 2 and 23, with fine and dry weather on Friday, and Bloemfontein mostly clear at 23 in the afternoon. A slight change in the weather for Gauteng on Friday, 23 for Soweto and Johannesburg, and Vereeniging and Pretoria are both warming up into the mid-20s, but with the possibility of thunder showers for Gauteng. As we head into the weekend, we'll see dry weather returning across South Africa with a predominantly warm afternoon. And then we're expecting a hot day for George and Port Elizabeth on Sunday, both at around 30 degrees. And Cape Town can expect a bit of evening rain ahead of a cold front overnight. That's all from the Weather Centre. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. Candace McKechnie in Cape Town there. And finally, there were celebrations all round as over 100 baby loggerhead turtles were released into the ocean in Durban today. It was just in time for World Turtle Day. The hatchlings were rehabilitated by staff at Ushaka Marine World. They were washed up on Cape Town beaches, rescued by passers-by, and then taken to Ushaka to grow stronger. Now, this morning, a team of aquarists boated out more than 10 nautical miles and released the hatchlings to start a new life. Several other loggerhead turtles are still being cared for at Ushaka Marine World, and they will soon join their friends. And that is totally adorable. Before we go, let's recap your top stories this evening. The state argues they have a strong case for prosecution, but President Jacob Zuma's legal team says they have new evidence that will prove the case must be struck off the roll. Police Minister Becky Cele gives security planning the nod for Saturday's inauguration at Loftus Versfeld in Pretoria. And a mother of 4 has confessed to killing her children with rat poison. Gruesome details of how she did it, even with a baby still breastfeeding. This emerging at her bail hearing today in the eMalahleni Magistrates Court. From me and the team, it's a very good night to you.